Hey folks, welcome back. So today is going to be kind of a part two extension of that first video about these grenades right here. One of the things I've noticed and I kind of thought about is we tried a couple different things and different methods to try to maybe slow the fuse down by lowering the temperature. The idea is maybe that we can lower the pressure a little bit, and it takes longer to build up pressure before the shell explodes. That didn't really help, at least not to a significant extent where it would be noticeable. I've watched a couple of videos actually of the reviews on this grenade here, and this exact same model actually had a longer time fuse in those videos. It was actually closer to the 4 to 5 second time range, so I'm kind of curious as to why this one was stuck with just, like 2 seconds, barely. So what I try to do is maybe we can break it in, so to speak, by keeping the hammer of the grenade pulled back. So the pin has been in here for quite some time. It's been about a week or two, and it's been loaded down like this. So, and I think having it having it cocked back like this and primed will compress the spring long enough, so maybe it might weaken it to some extent. Although I have heard that it's not necessarily the compression of the spring that causes it to weaken, but it's actually the repetitive motion of it slamming forward, compressing, decompressing, compressing, and decompressing that causes it to actually to weaken. So I've only launched this a couple times, so maybe it won't change anything. Probably won't, but so we'll see. But one thing that I've tried to do in this case is we'll be watching for is the time fuse a little bit longer in this situation, and B, I've loaded this up with baking powder this time instead of the baby powder. Last time, as you remember, we put in about like a third of it, or maybe even a fourth, maybe a third or fourth with baby powder. And baking soda is a little bit more grainy. It's not as powdery as the talc and baby powder. But I wonder if it will be produce the same effects as and maybe be a better option. The baby powder did get really messy and it like coated the whole room. I'd rather do this outside so it won't be as messy. But because we want to explode in the same place to have the same consistency and get the lighting correct, we're going to do it indoors again. This time, however, again, it's baking soda, but it is loaded to almost to the top right here. There's just enough room left over so I can insert the detonator with the CO2 cartridge and not overflow it. So I really have to pack it down there. So with that, we'll try to pull the pin, toss it, and we'll leave a gun right next to it to see how much smoke screen this grenade creates. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so in this first video right here, we're just going to show the video to see the timing of how long it takes to detonate, and then we'll do another video of the exact same shot, but to see the slow-mo smoke.
Pulling the pin. Pins out.
Okay, so now for the slow-mo shot of the exact same explosion. Unfortunately, I don't think this explosion was that dramatic, especially if you notice the gun in the back. The smoke screen doesn't really obscure it a whole lot, and for not a very lengthy amount of time in this case. If you also noticed that in the last video, the explosion time was pretty quick. It was still like around roughly 2 seconds, so it didn't seem that much different. Although in the next video, for some reason, we get a much longer fuse time. So we'll check that out in a second. Watch and see this one explode. So unfortunately, like the explosion, it went off. No difference in timing really. It was really 2 seconds roughly. Explosion-wise, the smoke didn't really obscure it that much, and it didn't last for that long either. Left a little bit of a mess, a lot of this unburnt powder, so to speak, since you can see it concentrated on the floor right there. Since if you notice in the video, the blast went directly down into the carpet. So that's kind of disappointing. If you've noticed, the gun itself, though, it didn't really affect it a whole lot. There is some residue left on it, but it's not to the point where it's coating it or anything like that. In the next frame, you can also compare it to the hand guards here. You'll notice that there's some like accumulation there for a little bit, but not a whole lot. And especially if you compare it to the other side of the hand guards where it was unaffected, it's pretty clean, and there's really not a huge difference between the two. So we know now that baking soda is kind of a bust, regardless of how much you fill it to. But let's revisit baby powder and see if we fill it to that brim, if we can get a different effect. Alright, so now I've filled this with some baby powder. Notice how it's pretty much close to the brim right now. You can't probably see it from this angle here, but it's about at this line right here. So I think that's a good line to draw because the amount of space remaining in here would fit the volume of the detonator or the the CO2 cartridge. So I'm gonna try to slowly insert this here. Oh, and by the way, the more times you use powder, the more likely the neck is to be sheared off or shorn. I don't know. Shears off and basically gets stuck in here. And in order to replace the shell and get a new one, you need to use like a bottle opening device really to kind of like crank it out. And at first, the first couple times you do it, I did the video in the last in the demo in the last video where you were able to remove it, and eventually you're able to kind of like get it to work it loose and then kind of unscrew it out. But eventually, the more times you do it, the more damage gets to the original cap right here. And like I said, it just gets more and more damage each time you remove it. And so these threads, they're not stripped or anything like that, but they are kind of like crunched up. So I would imagine each time you explode the grenade, it's going to be more and more difficult to basically have a clean explosion where you can have it still attach and wipe it off, or screw it off. And then of course each time you have to go in with a bottle opener basically to remove it, it causes more and more damage to it. And basically once you remove it, it becomes a little bit difficult to screw it on. You have to make sure that all like the threads are still in play. So I don't think these are going to last too long, at least if you keep running it with the smoke. If you saw it before, if you ran it with the BBs, they were heavy enough for some reason that it doesn't tear the shell straight off, and it will be able to be attached, and you can kind of use the remains of the shell to basically work its way out completely and cleanly. But with the powder form, for some reason that just like tears it way open. So we'll keep that in mind. So but we're doing this for the sake of science here. All right, so again, this is almost a full yeah. So first one, sorry, by the way, when you first remove the cap and you're installing a new shell, it might not screw in because like the threads are a little bit damaged. But if you kind of clean it out a little bit and make sure like any blockages has been removed, and then you kind of press it down a little bit and then work your way in, eventually you'll be able to get it back in again. But again, might not be a long-term thing. Okay, or at least when you're running with powder inside. Okay, so we'll try this and we'll see how this explodes. Now, maybe the explosion may be bigger. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to, use this one grenade's not going to, provide good smoke screen coverage. It would be a good marking tool. But maybe if you had a couple buddies, pop a couple of these at the same time, you might be able to get a smoke screen going. But we'll see how much, one full grenade is going to work. Alrighty. Alright, so we'll do the same thing. This time the first video will be just a slow-mo to witness the explosion. Notice the powder residue, and then we'll also talk about the timing of the grenade. This one didn't explode. It took much longer to explode, which is kind of interesting. But let's first watch the explosion, and then we'll go and watch the real-time video of the detonation time. Alright, so get ready for the explosion. I did have to cut to this because there was a long delay and it was in slow-mo, but watch this. Boom. Much larger cloud concealing the entire gun for brief moments of time. So imagine if you had like multiple of these ones going off. Now the timing was a different story. I'm not sure why that was. but it seemed like it was much longer than usual. Well, it was, and I actually thought it was a dud initially, but I did hear some hissing sounds, so I just let it run. But that was probably even longer than 5 seconds. So notice how the cloud is still there. I know this is slow-mo right now, until we'll do another real-time video just to see how long the smoke lasts and everything like that. It's from a different camera angle, but I think it still gives us a good idea. Now, it's not in this video, but as you can, well, actually kind of see it. The whole room was like cloudy after this. It was really lingering around. It coated everywhere. So much greater effect, I think. And notice the gun in the back. It is caked in that stuff. So pretty cool effect, I think, by watching this explosion and just seeing how much different loading it with baking soda versus baby powder, and whether you're loading it to the brim versus just a third of the effect. So here's another video in real time of the exact same explosion. It takes about 10 seconds for the detonator or the fuse to go through and blow up. And it also gives us a good idea of how long the smoke lasts in this video here. So it's a little bit less dramatic than in slow-mo, but kind of cool to watch that, see. Where I was standing or sitting, kind of the setup, camera setup. Look at that dirt, or not carpet. Caked this thing, look at that. Oh boy. I wonder if this thing's still, it's gonna be able to fire okay. Let's take a look. Oh, good thing the shell is still attached. So I wonder what happened there. That was a very delayed fuse, which I liked actually. That was very, that's how long it should be, I think. I don't know why every other fuse has been 2 minutes, or 2 seconds. This actually was, I thought this was going to be a dud actually. More powder residues into the bathroom. Ooh, look at that. Let's see if it still fires. Okay. The whole room is pretty cloudy right now. Look at that. Woo! Now that is a torture test. But that's unrelated to this right now. Alright. Cool. So overall, I think this is a pretty good experiment into making this possibly a good smoke grenade. Again, you probably need multiple grenades to do this, and assuming the timing is correct. I think this is just a one-off thing where the timing was delayed, but imagine you had a couple of these, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 actually, tossed simultaneously. You can probably have a good, couple seconds as a smoke screen to run from one area to the next. Obviously, marking targets with this would be pretty effective, I think. But to use it as smoke, you might need more. But I think it's definitely feasible. Look at based on what we've seen here. So I think this is really cool. I know in the last video we made last time we were talking about baking soda. Obviously, not that effective. Go with the baby powder here. But pretty good, and I think it has some pretty good promising results. So overall, I definitely think this is a good buy. Again, I'm not sure about the timing of the grenade. That just seems to be a little bit, hard to predict. But so just, watch out for that, and make sure you're careful of that. Other than that, thanks for watching, folks. Hope you all enjoy. See y'all next time.